50 minutes plus 1 lap in this one. Sandro Holtsam will start from pole position. His twin brother Giuliano not feeling too well. I don't think he's going to be racing today. It's going to be Holtsam and Soufi once again at the front of the order. Danny Soufi for Conrad Motorsport. Great to see that car repaired. Sandro Holtsam, though, not getting underway on the formation lap we can see there on the background. Let's hope that car gets rolling. Daniel Calvitz, the number 66 Rinaldi car, starting from third on this grid. Clement Moreno in the ANS Motorsport car, starting from fourth. The one and only Nova Proto in fifth place. That's Kevin Rabin alongside Emil Heyerdahl in the 18 Molnar Motorsport Duquesne. The back row of the grid, the DKR the Racing Experience number 12 car, and then the number 3 DKR Engineering of Laurent at the back of the grid. Lawrence is jolly quick. Wait for him to work his way through the order. Now, hopefully, we're going to get that car rolling at the start-finish line, but we saw there the car stopped on the main straight, unfortunately, for the team down at Rinaldi Racing. This is hugely unfortunate because this car has been worked on, of course, after that collision with Danny Soufi yesterday. They've been working hard to get that car out there, but for some reason, Sandro Holtsam is being pushed back into the pits. Can they at least get it rolling for a pit lane start? My fingers are firmly crossed as we get ourselves ready for this 50-minute endurance race. Well, that's not the start that we'd want to this Prototype Wind Series race for that particular team down at Rinaldi after all their hard work. But this does open up the doors a little bit, doesn't it, for Danny Soufi? Danny Soufi will suddenly be our de facto pole sitter in the Conrad Motorsport Ligier, looking to make amends for the collision yesterday with Sandro Holtsam and looking to net his first race victory of 2024, but he's still going to face incredibly stern competition, the likes of Calvitz. I mean, there is a name. Daniel Calvitz is such a fast driver, and we look forward to seeing quite how he performs in this one. Quite surprised, actually, that he's taking the start, but of course yesterday he didn't get a chance to drive in the car because the race was red flagged after just a few minutes. If you weren't watching yesterday, this almost looks dry compared to the weather conditions they were facing in Prototype Winter Series yesterday as they go on to their second formation lap. It was absolutely torrential out there at the Circuito do Estoril, and unfortunately Danny Soufi caught on an aquaplaning moment. There was not much he could do on the run down to turn 1, and sadly ended up collecting the 33 of Sandro Holtsam. Both cars out of the race. Red flag, I think partly because of the incident and partly because of the deteriorating conditions, and the race was not resumed. So we only got 3 laps in ultimately, but we only need 2 laps to declare a race result. So the race was declared, and it was declared in favour of Sandro Holtsam because, of course, he was leading at the time of the red flag, or at least he was leading when you count back 1 lap. So Sandro Holtsam, in spite of being collected yesterday, did score full points in the LMP3 class. So he will be our championship leader after race number 1 of the season. However, race number 2 of the season, for now, is starting in the pits, if it starts at all, which is certainly not what Sandro and the Rinaldi team were hoping for. Again, strap in for Daniel Calvitz in the 66 Rinaldi Racing Ligier JSP 320. That's the number 66 car in the second row of the grid. He is lightning fast, and he'll be very good in these early stages. Of course, there are mandatory pit stops between minute 20 and minute 30 in this race. A number of the cars will be doing driver changes. Danny Soufi is driving solo, but as a silver ranked driver, he will have a 158-second pit time. The pit delta from pit entry to pit exit exit has to be at least 158 seconds, 1 minute and 38 seconds, and that is not what we wanted to see. That's Sandro Holzem out of the car and walking with his car being wheeled behind him. So unfortunately Sandro Holzem is not able to take the start on this occasion. Not what we wanted to see, but hopefully that Rinaldi Racing car will be back and running again. No more prototype Wind Series races this weekend, but hopefully we see the team and the car and the Holzem twins at Portimao next weekend. You don't have to wait long for more Winter Series action. We have 2 events on consecutive weekends each month from now through March. Danny Soufi will be looking to build an advantage then with that 158-second pit stop we mentioned. For Kalvitz and his co-driver Steve Parrow, it's only 129 seconds because Steve Parrow is a bronze driver, and the ANS Motorsport number 42, Clement Moreno and Julien Lemoyne, they are both bronze rated drivers, so they only have to pit for 96 seconds from entry to exit, so they could have a distinct advantage in the blue and green number 42 car. Let's see what we can do then. This is going to be a very exciting race. It's 6 LMP3 cars with a lone interloper, the incredible Nova Proto in its own class, the Nova MP02 in the hands of 16-year-old Swiss Kevin Rabin. That car is starting from the 3rd row. On the 1st row, all alone, is Danny Soufi for Conrad Motorsport. Let's see what he can do in the Ligier JSP 320. No Sandro Holzem on the front row, but nonetheless, we go racing, and it is 50 minutes plus 1 lap beginning now, as very wisely covering the inside there is Danny Soufi, as Daniel Kalvitz looks to go for it early there, looking to the inside line at turn 1, but Danny Soufi covers off the inside. Side by side potentially here for 4th place as Kevin Rabin snakes to the side of Emil Heyerdahl in the Molnar Motorsport number 18 car. Almost side by side there between Kalvitz and Soufi. Now this is a big test for Danny Soufi, with a driver the caliber of Daniel Kalvitz to go up against an identical machinery side by side as they approach turn 4, and Kalvitz has the favoured outside line in these weather conditions. He will find more grip around the outside at Curva VIP in these conditions. So in what order will the cars emerge? It's still Danny Soufi in the lead. So Soufi, in spite of taking the inside line, which is usually a bit more treacherous in this kind of weather, he does hold on to the lead, but he drifts out wide at Parabolica Interior. He'll be struggling for traction on that paint, and it's side by side as they head downhill towards Arella for the first time. Kalvitz being covered off here by Danny Soufi. Soufi continues to hold the lead for Conrad, drifts wide going through turn 7. They'll emerge towards Gancho, but in what order? It's still Soufi in the lead. Danny doing a great job then here in the early going for Conrad Motorsport. Franz Conrad will be cheering him on, providing words of encouragement in his ears. And Daniel Kalvitz laser focused on trying to get through here, and very compelling battle in the early stages. Retaining 3rd place was Clement Moreno in the number 42 ANS Motorsport car. So he retains 3rd place for now, but the top 2 streaking away. They're fighting each other, but they're not costing each other too much time, evidently. Across the line at the end of the first lap then, and it is Danny Soufi that leads the way, covering the middle as they approach turn 1. You can see once again, as with yesterday, there is that damp patch mid-braking zone towards turn 1, like a little river that pools up there. And that is what caught out Danny Soufi yesterday, but he'll be all too aware of that eccentricity on the circuit now. Looks like Leah Mauer had issues in the 2nd sector of the first lap. She is limping around the circuit, I think. Leah Mauer in the Racing Experience number 12 car has not crossed the line yet to complete the first lap, and I think that car is slow somewhere on the circuit. So unfortunately, Racing Experience, of course, we heard from Leah Mauer and Charles Delbracin yesterday during the red flag, and unfortunately it doesn't seem as though there's going to be much racing for that car today. However, it did just come past me, I think, so hopefully that car is at least running. Coming through Parabolica interior once again is Danny Sufi, and Sufi rather impressively building a gap here over Daniel Calvet. Calvet with an incredible resume in GT racing in particular, but also very handy in a prototype machine. The number 66 Rinaldi racing car that he is campaigning. Former ADAC GT Masters champion, former FIA GT3 European champion, a Pro-Am winner with Rinaldi Racing is Daniel Calvitz at both the Spa 24 Hours and the Nürburgring 24 Hours. So he and Rinaldi have shared plentiful success as well. Getting word from the pit lane from Chris McCarthy that Sandra Holtzum not taking the start as a symptom of yesterday's issues, as around the outside goes Lawrence Herr. That was incredible. Remember that I said Lawrence Herr was one to watch from the back of the grid? Well, we just got confirmation of that around the outside in the DKR Engineering Duquesne D08. What a move from Lawrence Herr at Parabolica Ayrton Senna. Spectacular driving. He's up to third place and will now be challenging the top two, I'm sure of it. But up to third place then goes Lawrence Herr. Clement Moreno down to fourth place, and he's under pressure from his ANS stablemate in the Nova Proto. That is Kevin Rabin. Lawrence Herr then making his way up the order, another very impressive driver gracing the GT, the prototype Winter Series grid. Lawrence Herr made his car racing debut in Formula Renaults, but has raced Michelin Le Mans Cup in a Norma LMP3 car. Has been racing with DKR miscellaneously since 2019, has done GTE in the World Endurance Championship, LMP2 racing in the WEC and the ELMS as well. So that third place car, the bare carbon fiber with the orange nose tip, the number 3 DKR Engineering car, just going through shot there. Lawrence Herr, a very qualified driver, and he's already up to third place. Clement Moreno and Kevin Rabin fighting out then for this fourth place. Moreno will be keeping an eye on the 16-year-old Swiss. He'll know what teenagers are like. They'll stuff it up the inside if given a quarter of an opportunity, never mind half. And Rabin briefly, very briefly, led the race yesterday. He was in third place before Danny Sufi collided with Sandra Holtzum. And so just before the red flag, Kevin Rabin was actually leading. But of course, he wasn't credited with that after the red flag and the lap count back that is typical in those circumstances. Danny Sufi is building a lead over Daniel Calvitz. This is hugely impressive stuff from Danny Sufi to be building this advantage. In 2022, he made his LMP3 debut in the Prototype Cup Series. And I remember being impressed by the fact that a driver who'd basically done Spec Miata, Spec MX-5 racing out in the US and some drifting, how he got into an LMP3 car and just immediately seemed to be on the ball. And Franz Conrad sees a lot of that potential in him as well. And Danny pulling away at the front of the order right now. But Clement Moreno doing a solid job here in the intra-ANS Motorsport battle. Clement Moreno has done a lot of racing in France previously, or at least a couple of seasons worth of racing. The Le Mera Cup, which is a category for silhouettes, kind of silhouette touring cars, if you will. He raced in that in France and had some decent success there. Moving up to the LMP3s, certainly quite the different beast from a Le Mera Cup machine, but doing well here in fourth place. Of course, Kevin Rabin, the Nova MP02 is a very different beast from the go-karts that he is accustomed to, but the 16-year-old Swiss doing a good job here in the early stages. We're approaching 10 minutes into this race, 7.5 minutes elapsed so far. When we get to minute 20, the pit lane will be open for 10 minutes for the mandatory pit stops. The all bronze lineups will be doing 96-second pit stops. The more impressive lineups, the silver lineups, will be doing 158-second pit stops. That's going to have a huge effect on the overall standings at the conclusion of this, or in the latter half of this race. This is why Danny Sufi will be pushing hard to build a gap over Daniel Kalvitz, because Kalvitz, along with Steve Parrow, has to only pit for 129 seconds. So effectively, they're going to get 30 seconds free during the pit stop, and Steve Parrow will more than likely come back out as the race leader if things stay as they are. But the question is, will he be able to maintain that advantage as the AM driver in the lineup over the young charger Danny Sufi? Understand that it is Charles Delbrasine at the wheel of the Racing Experience Duqueine D08. That is now updated on our timing and graphics respectively. Liam Auer will be taking that car over then later on. The Dutch racer who won the Supercar Challenge in 2022 in the LMP3 category. I believe that was her first season of racing as well. Very impressive racer is Liam Auer, and great to see her back in a race car. I don't think she did much racing in 2023, if any. She was saying first time in 2 years that she's back at the wheel, about 18 months in reality, but still very impressive that she's taking to it so well, and she'll take over the Racing Experience car later on, although it is a way off the pack because of whatever issues went on for Charles Delbrasine in the first laps. A&S Motorsport will be loving this camera time as these two cars fight it out for fourth place. However, they won't be loving the fact that they are fighting it out for fourth place. This is their two cars, this is their two investments, if you will, going head to head. Kevin Rabin, incidentally, is one of the solo drivers, so he'll be doing this race on his own. As a young racer, as a young aspiring pro racer, he's automatically graded as a silver by the FIA, so he is going to have a 158-second pit stop, just like Danny Sufi. So he's going to be held for quite some time by the looks of it, and we'll see where that unfolds him. Meanwhile, there is the number 12. That's Charles Delbrasine about to go a lap down as Kevin Rabin later on the brakes tries to go around the outside of Clement Moreno. Oh, and Delbrasine in a spin, facing the wrong way. He's going to be careful about how he handles this. Gets himself off the circuit. That's probably the best way forward, to go backward in that instance, and rejoins the race, but he's now been lapped by the field. So I think Delbrasine's struggling in these conditions. Sure enough, his best lap is a 2:09, a long way off the others. And I think it was very close there between the A&S Motorsport cars. I was just looking at the timing screen in that moment, but it looked like Kevin Rabin might have gotten through there at Curva VIP. We'll see where they unfold. Yes, Kevin Rabin is through into fourth place. So the A&S Motorsport car is through into P4. Rabin on the inside at Curva VIP got that done. And oh, goodness me, Clement Moreno, the car responding to him there with a handful of opposite lock. There is very little give in an LMP3 car. They're far more of a manual car than the GT3. Now, obviously, yes, they have flappy paddles. They are not manual in the gearbox sense, but they don't have the same driver aids. They're a far stiffer, more pure racing car. And in wet conditions like this, that means it is quite the challenge to keep them on the island. And Clement Moreno did well there to catch that slide. Moreno, though, now that Rabin has been released, he's just disappearing up the road. Of course, Kevin will be all too aware of the fact that he is having a long pit stop. So he wants to make up some time and try and build a cushion now over Moreno and Heyerdahl behind him. Danny Sufi, meanwhile, the pendulum starting to swing against him a little bit in terms of pace. Last lap across the line for Daniel Kalvitz in second place was a 1:51.700. Kalvitz has now decreased the gap back under 3 seconds. It's 2.8 seconds between the top two now. So very, very close indeed. Sufi and Kalvitz fighting this one out, and Kalvitz looking to try and potentially hand over the car in the lead to Steve Parrow. As a bit of a four-wheel drift there on corner entry from Kalvitz. Great to see Daniel Kalvitz here in the first ever weekend of Prototype Winter Series. When you see names with that kind of resume really tells you that this is a series to watch. I understand we're going to have maybe a couple of more cars at Portimao. Big lock-up there. Driver aid certainly not as prevalent or prominent or existent in these prototype cars versus the GT3s. I think there's ABS. No, there's not traction control. These cars are very hard to handle in these conditions. It's quite remarkable that so many kind of gentleman drivers make their first steps in prototype racing in these LMP3 cars, because they are not easy machines in the slightest. But if you can master these cars, then in theory you should be able to handle an LMP2 or maybe even a hypercar as well. A little bit of time and practice. That's certainly, I think, Danny Soufi's long-term ambition, to climb up that sports car ladder. Last lap he was about equidistant on pace with Daniel Kalvitz. He was a few hundredths of a second quicker than Kalvitz that time. Of course, we saw the luck-up, we saw some of the wiggling from Danny Soufi, from Daniel Kalvitz. So we're maybe not surprised that Kalvitz didn't close in the gap on that lap. So then Daniel Kalvitz powering out of turn 6. You see there the bumps on the road as well. There's very little give in the suspension of these cars too. Some of the circuits that have slightly older surfaces, I'm thinking of the Lausitz ring. I've seen LMP3 cars around there. You really see every single abrasion in the road in these LMP3 cars. I think Danny Soufi will tell you all about that as well. He was being thrown around the car at the Lausitz ring on his LMP3 debut, as a matter of fact, at that particular circuit. And yeah, any circuit with a questionable surface is certainly amplified by these LMP3 cars. The circuit itself here at Estoril is fairly well maintained. The tarmac, I think, refreshed not too many seasons ago. Danny Soufi approaching the first corner then. 15 minutes in the books. When the clock hits 30 on the side of your screen, on the top left of your screen, that will be the start of the pit window. Pit window opens with 20 minutes of the race complete. 30 minutes of the race complete will be when the pit window ends, so they have to stop somewhere between those two markers, the 20 and 30 minute mark in the race. However, that is punishable as well. If you do not do it, you will get a fairly sizable penalty, so they do have to make sure they keep that in check. If they don't do it, they'll be in trouble. Danny Soufi leading the way by 2.4 seconds, so the gap has come down again. This man, Daniel Kalvitz, on something of a mission right now, by the looks of it, in the Rinaldi Ligier. Of course, Rinaldi rather uniquely running two cars from two different manufacturers here, the other car being the Duqueine D08 of Sandro Holtzen, but unfortunately that car not starting the race. Continuation of issues stemming from yesterday's race. It was a heavy hit on the rear corner of that car yesterday, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it was a gearbox or a drivetrain issue for the number 33 Duqueine from Rinaldi Racing, because there's a lot of important stuff at the rear end of this LMP3 car, including, of course, the drivetrain, the engine, and the gearbox. It is more than likely an issue of that ilk that the car didn't get underway off the grid. Danny Soufi crosses the line then. What's the gap this time? It's 2.2 seconds. So again, Kalvitz continues to just slightly chip away at Danny Soufi, but Soufi doing an impenetrable job here at the front of the order. I'm sure his family are up bright and early. I believe most of them are on the East Coast, so 5 hours behind. I'm sure some of them are up at 5:30 right now, watching Danny in action in this race. Hopefully they have a coffee machine nearby. Laurenteur is closing in as well. Laurenteur last time by a 150.874. 150.874. A Duquesne D08 of Laurenteur on a mission here in P3 for now. Of course, started from the back of the grid and really pushing, as you can see. Again, when you're on that paint, you can't put the power down. That car will loop in an instant. So then the top three split by less than 6 seconds. Now, when it comes to the pit window, in less than 2 minutes' time, as I mentioned earlier on, Danny Soufi will have to be 158 seconds from pit entry to pit exit. For Carl Witz, he'll hand over to Steve Parrow. That process needs to take a minimum of 129 seconds from entry to exit. For Laurenteur, he will be handing over to Tom Van Rompuy, and that's 129 seconds for them as well. Now, Tom is a very capable bronze driver, so keep an eye on that number 3 car, the DKR engineering car. I get the feeling that could be the hot favourite ultimately for this race win when everything works out. If the race remains uninterrupted, I think Tom Van Rompuy could find himself in prime position once the pit switches take place. And this time by, they will be able to make pit stops, of course, because once the clock hits 30.00, we will be in the pit window. So this time by, the leading pack will be able to pit if they so choose. I imagine for both Carl Witz and Laurenteur, they'll stay out there for as long as they can. Traditionally, the gold driver in a bronze gold lineup will keep themselves out there as long as possible to give their bronze driver a cushion to work with. That was Charles Delbracin slow again in the number 12 car, just struggling to get to grips with the racing experience Duquesne in these immensely tricky conditions. But he will pick up pace and figure it out as we go on. Of course, did all of his testing, his first time in a P3 car, in the dry conditions on Thursday, Friday. And then on Saturday, of course, it was anything but dry for Charles Delbracin. This is really a venture into the unknown. Emil Heyerdahl powering towards Curva VIP. Now, I'm interested to see whether Danny Soufi makes his pit stop early doors here. Since it's a solo driver, he can really make that pit stop whenever he chooses within that window. But the 3 drivers coming through will have the opportunity to pit, but none of them do so. I was rather anticipating that would be the case. And might be a lap or two before we see anyone visiting pit lane, even though the window is now open. Daniel Carl Witz, for the first time in a long time, is within 2 seconds of the race lead, though. So Danny Soufi is being closed in on by Carl Witz, also by Laurenteur as well. Lawrence making his way towards the back of Carl Witz. The pair of Ligiers with the Duquesne closing in. We do have 1 car in the pits, and it is Charles Delbracin who has decided to get the car over to Liam Auer as quickly as he can. Charles gets out of the car, and Liam Auer, very, very fast racer, but unfortunately she is probably not going to be a factor in any battles, given the car is a couple of laps down. Also in, Clement Moreno we saw there coming in as well in the number 42 ANS car, so the 5th place car as it is on the timing screen is into the pit lane, just checking the Michelin rubber is all up to temp, and it is, so they will strap him in and get him racing. It is Clement Moreno making way for Julien Lemoyne, who we've previously seen in the GT Winter Series in a Ligier JS2R. He's now in the bigger brother, the Ligier JSP 320. And he'll fire up that 5.6 litre Nissan V8 and get that car up and going in just a few moments. Our leading trio then heading through the final corner. Once again, I wouldn't expect Carl Witz and Laurenteur in. Danny Soufi, of course, as the solo driver. He may well pit, but I think he might leave it to the direct middle of the window if he possibly can. Soufi, you see there, windscreen wipers on the go, lights ablaze. Gap is out again, actually, just a little bit, 2.1 seconds now for Kalvitz, the gap between himself and the leader Sufi. So Sufi actually a little bit quicker last time by. However, the last lap for the third place car was a 1:50.283. Lawrence Herr is on the move. He was 1.2 seconds quicker than Danny Sufi last time by, 1.5 seconds quicker than Daniel Kalvitz. Lawrence Herr is absolutely on it, and again he's handing over to a very strong bronze driver in the form of Tom Van Rompuy. This is exceedingly impressive driving from Lawrence, who started at the back of the order. The A&S Motorsport team have had another car in. Kevin Rabin in the A&S Motorsport machine from 4th place. The Nova Proto, the only non-LMP3 car out there on the circuit, is in from 4th place. Meanwhile, both of our pit visitors, the 42 car, now I believe in the hands of Julian Lemoyne and Liam Mauer, have both headed out onto the circuit. Daniel Kalvitz up the hill then through Ganshow, and look at how close Lawrence Herr is now. This is becoming something of a 3-car battle. Kevin Rabin, of course, has to be in the pits for 158 seconds because he is a solo silver driver. No classes in this within LMP3, no Pro-Am and Am setup, but the balancing is instead done by pit handicap, and Danny Sufi is in to serve his 158-second, 2-minute and 38-second pit stop. From pit entry to pit exit, it will take him 2 minutes and 38 seconds at a minimum. He was meant to be handing over to Franz Conrad, who is a bronze-rated driver, but he is instead racing solo, at least for this weekend. So Danny Sufi will remain in the cockpit. And now the team, frankly, just wait, check the tyre pressures, do a full service, you've got time. As now the lead with Daniel Kalvitz. Both of these drivers will probably push it till the end of the window, Kalvitz and Lawrence Herr. However, that could indeed not be the case. Sometimes a gentleman driver will want his half of the race, his fair share of the race. Other times they go for glory and say, look, keep the fast guy out there until the very last moment, and then I'll take over and take it to the flag. Different schools of philosophy, but Daniel Kalvitz certainly doing a good job here. But Lawrence Herr, for me, the standout driver of this race. He's doing a sensational and scintillating job in the DKR engineering car. Tom Van Rompuy, I think, only showed up on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, for this weekend. He hasn't done too much mileage this weekend. Van Rompuy is taking this number 3 car over, a very decorated bronze. And we'll see when he takes the car over. 24 minutes plus 1 lap of racing left to go then. Kalvitz still leads the way, having inherited that lead from Danny Sufi. Of course, Danny Sufi is going to come out of the pit lane over a lap down. Such is the length of this pit stop for him. Look at the progress Lawrence Herr is making. The delta in the green more often than not compared to Daniel Kalvitz, as they both dash across the line now to complete another lap. That was lap 14 of the race in the books, just 1.3 seconds between them. The top 3 since Lawrence Herr got up into 3rd place. I don't think the top 3 have been separated by more than 10 seconds at any point, and certainly equidistant in terms of talent, clearly. Although Lawrence Herr has been that little bit more special on certain laps. He seems to just have it dialed in at the moment. The Duquesne chassis, certainly along with the Ligier, the 2 most favoured LMP3 products, if you will. There are, of course, 4 LMP3 cars total, the other 2 chassis being from Ades and Ginetta, respectively. Both Ades and Ginetta will be looking to gain some more customers in the next cycle of development, which is next year. For 2025, there will be a new generation of LMP3 machines, the 3rd generation of LMP3 machines since the category was formed in 2015. And of course, we also know that the 5.6-litre Nissan V8 will be consigned to the history books in favour of a V6. So it'll be a sad day that we don't have these wonderful guttural noises out of these LMP3 cars anymore. He's referred to them as Thor's hammer. They sound so incredible as they come through the main straight, especially at a circuit where there's a big spectator grandstand. It reverberates off. You feel like you're being surrounded by V8 Hornets. So then cars coming past the pit lane. Will we see anyone in? Yes, Karlvitz is in and Lawrence Herr follows. So I think this would be their last possible opportunity as well. They'd be cutting it very fine to get in with more than 20 minutes left to go if they didn't pit this time. So this was their last shot at making the stop. And sure enough, the DKR engineering car is in. Lawrence Herr will make way now for Tom Van Rompuy. This pit stop for them needs to take 129 seconds, 2 minutes and 9 seconds. Danny Sufi is out there, of course. Also into the pits is Emil Heyerdahl. There is Danny Sufi. So, yeah, Danny is out there now and running. The pit stop has been completed, although I think it took a little bit longer than needed. It was a 2:40 pit stop. 2 minutes 45 actually, yes, so it was 6 seconds longer than it needed to be by the looks of it. A few seconds lost in the pits for Danny Sufi, but nonetheless he's now back on the lead lap as these drivers get belted in. Sufi certainly will not be in the lead. However, it's now going to be a battle between the bronzes, Karlvitz and Lawrence Herr. The two cars in the pits, the number 3, the number 66, both set for 129-second pit stops. So both drivers will hopefully get out there at the same time unless there's any issue in this pit window. Looks like they might be having some issues though with the steering wheel on that 66 car. Hopefully nothing too wrong there, but Karlvitz, who's handed over to Steve Parrow, fiddling there. The two cars out right next to each other there. That was a great shot in the picture-in-picture there. So Karlvitz and Lawrence Herr have made way. Lawrence Herr has made way for Tom Van Rompuy, and Steve Parrow is now at the wheel of the leading car. This is the top two trundling out of pit lane, and let's see whether Steve Parrow can hold off Tom Van Rompuy. They now roll out onto the circuit. Both of these drivers have good experience in prototypes in LMP3 cars. Parrow has raced with Rinaldi for almost a decade, some Ferrari GT3 racing, but has focused on Michelin Le Mans Cup in recent years. So Steve Parrow with some good experience here that he's bringing into the prototype winter series, and Lawrence Herr as well. Sorry, not Lawrence Herr. Tom Van Rompuy is very decorated himself as a bronze driver. Has started at the Le Mans 24 Hours, has done Belcar, Creventic, European Le Mans Series. Even done some LMP2s, of course. That's where he started at Le Mans in the LMP2 class last year. So keep an eye on Tom Van Rompuy. He's quick, but can Steve Parrow match or best him? We'll also have to see what the advantage is, what the gap is between this top two and Danny Sufi next time across the line. Of course, it says 2 minutes 31 on screen, but that's not factoring in the fact that these two have made their stops now. So once they all cross the line next time, we will see what the gap is between these two and Danny Sufi, but it is going to be in the realm of, I think, about 35 seconds at a minimum, because not only was Danny Sufi's stop always going to be longer, as it was meant to be a minimum of 158 seconds, but it was also about 7 seconds longer than it actually needed to be as well. So we'll see quite what happens with Danny Sufi, what the gap turns out to be. But the top two come running across the line. Emil Heyerdahl goes through, shot there in the Molnar car, but we wait through the mist, through the spray to see who's leading, and Rompuy has taken the lead. He got a better run there out of the final corner, and Tom Van Rompuy has managed to slide through into the race lead. So in the spray, Van Rompuy has managed to move through. Steve Parrow then down to second place. Meanwhile, third place car will be crossing the line now, so we'll see the gap between these two and Danny Soufi. What is it? It's 29.5 seconds, so that's not quite as big of a gap as I expected. He's got 17 minutes plus 1 lap to try and gain that advantage, but Danny Soufi is going to have his work cut out for him to try and do it for sure. There is your race second place driver then, Steve Parrow in P2. Tom Van Rompuy has managed to get through into this race lead and is now leaving Steve Parrow behind. The gap was 0.3 of a second. I think it's going to have gone out by the time they cross the line. Actually, Van Rompuy has ended up behind him again. So what happened to Tom Van Rompuy? Clearly, the Belgian racer had a moment there. Now, there were green flags displayed heading into turn 5, which rather suggests there were yellow flags at turn 4. So I wonder whether Tom Rompuy, out of sight of us, maybe had a little bit of a spin coming out of Curva VIP. That could well be the explanation for what's happened there. But Tom Van Rompuy is down to second place, so Steve Parrow is back to the front of the order, and now Van Rompuy has to go and try and close in on Parrow. Exciting stuff then for Steve Parrow. He's back to the front of the pack. 7.1 seconds is the gap between himself and Tom Van Rompuy. Let's see what the gap is as well between the leader and third place Danny Soufi as he crosses the line. Soufi just crossing the line now, and the gap is down to 20.7 seconds. So his last lap a 1:51, Steve Parrow's last lap a 1:59.755. So Danny Soufi is gaining in the realm of 8 seconds per lap. Soufi for Conrad Motorsport is on it right now. He's trying everything he can to try and claim this win. But of course, with the pit stop handicap, he's having to fight from underneath, to borrow some MMA parlance. Let's see if he can score the knockout blow before the end of this race. Less than 15 minutes left to go then, and Steve Parrow is your leader for Rinaldi Racing. Tom Van Rompuy taking over from Laurent Her. Briefly led the way, but seemingly had an issue at turn 4. There's the gap between them on picture there. It was 7.1 seconds, but Tom Van Rompuy, I think, is closing in. He was 0.4 quicker through sector 1. They go through the second sector split now just before they go through Gancho, but there is Danny Soufi. Danny Soufi is clearly closing in at a rate of knots here in third place. Julien Lemoyne is another 13 seconds or so behind him, but Danny Soufi is absolutely on it right now. Through Gancho goes the young American. You see there the Nordschleife sports car sticker on the side of the car. That's advertising Franz Conrad's sports and supercar dealership that he was telling me all about. He's got more than one passion project ongoing, but I think all of them involve cars. The same is the case for Danny Soufi as well. Not only is he passionate, but he's extremely talented, and certainly becoming more and more sharp in an LMP3 car with each passing weekend. Look at the gap, it's down under 15 seconds. Soufi 15 seconds away from the race leader, gaining at a rate of knots. And this is hugely impressive, but the gap also down between Parrow and Rompuy as well, back under 5 seconds. The last lap for Steve Parrow was a 1:56.581. The last lap for Tom Van Rompuy was a 1:54.420, while Danny Soufi's previous lap a 1:50.837. That's his personal best lap of the race. I think the conditions are slightly improving at this stage of the race, which is no doubt helping him, but this is a huge testament to the abilities of Soufi as he closes in on the field here. Julien Lemoyne sits in 4th place. He's 31 seconds back. 4th overall. The first and only Nova NP02 is 5th overall. That's Kevin Rabin for ANS Motorsport. Emil Heyerdahl is still out there for Molnar Motorsport in 6th place. 7th place is Leo Mauer, of course, recovering the car from Charles Delbracin's stint in 7th, and we didn't get to see the Holtzum twins car, the number 33, out there on circuit in this race. But Danny Soufi is really going for it at the moment. The gap was down under 15 seconds. I reckon it may well be under 10 this time across the line. It certainly won't be much more than 10, and it's going to be a real close run thing to see whether Soufi can end up taking this win. Of course, it's one thing catching these guys, but he then has to find room to get past. He's a good little overtaker, is Danny, but it's going to be a challenge. The gap down to 3 seconds at the front of the order between Parot and Rompuy. So Rompuy still closing in. He'll be kicking himself for whatever little error he made at turn 4. But there is the gap, 10.2 seconds for Danny Soufi. So Soufi still closing in, still doing brilliantly here at the helm of the Conrad Motorsport Ligier JSP 320. First sector. He's already gone through the first sector split. The first sector ends after turn 2. And even in that sector alone, he's made 7/10 on that lap, which is a great illustration of just how quick Danny is in these conditions. The AM drivers, of course, work so hard to try and find their improvements, get better, and they hire brilliant driver coaches and co-drivers to try and assist them on their path to becoming better racing drivers. However, in conditions like this, it is the pros and the young career-minded drivers that really show their mettle, and Danny Soufi is absolutely doing that right now. Again, all 3 cars now within shot between turn 6 and turn 7, as you saw there. So this is going to go down to the wire. 10 minutes and 38 seconds plus 1 lap left to go. So in reality, that's going to be something like 12 minutes left to go, I think. And certainly, if Danny keeps closing and passes easily, he will be able to try and get that win. But again, getting around the cars is far different than closing in on them. So we'll have to see whether Danny can do it. But Steve Parot is doing an admirable job here right now of holding on to that race lead. He's being closed in on by Tom Van Rompuy. And he knows he's being closed in on by Tom Van Rompuy, but he's not letting it phase him. He's keeping the car on the straight and narrow, doing what he needs to do. However, if his tension is going to rise, it's surely going to any moment, because Van Rompuy is now within a second. It was just over 1 second at the line. Parot and Rompuy split by a second in the battle for the lead. Steve Parot leads the race. Then it's Ligier versus Duquesne. It's Rinaldi versus DKR, and there's a Conrad Ligier running interference in the back of shot as well. The top 3 back within 5 seconds. Steve Parot leads the race. Van Rompuy there in second place, and it's about T-1 lap before Danny Soufi is in this battle as well. We're going to have a 3-way fight for this win, I'm sure of it. This is going to be absolutely brilliant. Steve Parot will have to go on the defensive. And while this battle continues on, we'll keep an eye on it, but I understand Chris McCarthy is down in the pits and we can hear from Daniel Kalvitz.
Thank you very much, Adam. Yes, I'm down here in pit lane with race leader Rinaldi Racing, Daniel Kalvitz. Daniel, you were out there on track for the first half of that race. Tell us how the conditions are out there to drive.
It was definitely better than yesterday, for sure. Yeah, the beginning was quite wet, and it started to let me more dry. And in the first laps, I tried to catch the leader, the Conrad Motorsport, but I was not able to in the first lap. So I decided, okay, just keep following him because he has to stand long in the pits. And now I hope that Steve is doing a good job now, but it will be close. He's not used to driving in the rain.
It's getting very close for the lead. Less than a second now, less than 10 minutes to go. Guys in the crowd, we are down at Garage 6. I really hope you're enjoying that one. Are you enjoying racing for these guys in front of the crowd? Give us a wave, guys. Hope you guys are enjoying it up there in the crowd. We're going to hand back up to Adam Weller now.
We just saw it, the move for the lead. Danny Sufi is up into the lead. He got the superior traction out of the final corner. Van Rompuy got past Steve Parrow as well. Parrow struggled out of the final corner. Tom Van Rompuy goes from first to third. Steve Parrow goes from first to third in one fell swoop, but Danny Sufi carried the momentum down the main straight. They were 3 wide as they came past the pit lane, and it is now Danny Sufi back into the race lead. Sufi leading with 7 minutes and 20 seconds left to go. Danny Sufi is your race leader. Incredible driving from Danny Sufi. For Conrad Motorsport, who of course started second on the grid, but it was de facto pole position with Sandro Holtzum not taking the start. Therefore, he had that lead, but of course, with the penalty system, the pit stop handicap system, he's had to do it all again, but he's gotten around Van Rompuy, he's gotten around Steve Parrow in one fell swoop. I was saying variations upon the old cliche that catching is one thing, passing is another, but Danny Sufi got it done expertly and now leads the way for Conrad Motorsport. He knows he's got the pace advantage. He knows he's the quickest driver out there. Now he just needs to control the car on the last few laps of this race. 6 minutes and 20 seconds left to go, and Danny Sufi leads the way. The gap will be out somewhere in the region of 3, maybe 4 seconds as they come across the line. 4 seconds exactly, almost 4.002 for Tom Van Rompuy as he crosses the line there in the DKR Engineering Duquesne. Through turn 2 now comes Danny Sufi in the Conrad Ligier Conrad Motorsport team with so much heritage, particularly actually in GT racing. If you go back to the 1990s, the early 1990s, in fact, let's go there. He was the Conrad Motorsport team were developing their own Group C cars at the tail end of the Group C era. The Conrad KM011, which Danny Sufi reminds me is still in the workshop, and in fact he's been responsible for valeting that car, cleaning that car a few times in the Conrad workshop, because, you know, young drivers have to earn their keep. And how exciting that that Group C car is still floating around the Conrad offices some 30 years later. They went on to GT racing, of course, with Porsche 993 GT2s and the like. Moved over to Celine's in the 2000s. As Steve Parrow has a bit of a moment there in the Rinaldi Ligier. Vis-a-vis the Celine, Franz Conrad said to me, yeah, best car I've ever driven. And raced it here a couple of times in the FIA GT Championship as well. Franz was meant to be racing with us this weekend. However, he decided to hand the reins to Danny Sufi. He joked with me that maybe I should have drove after all yesterday, after, of course, Danny Sufi's mistake. But the continued faith in the American youngster paying dividends right now as they lead the Prototype Wind Series race. Of course, this really is the first full race in Prototype Wind Series history. Our first ever race was yesterday, but unfortunately was red flagged after 3 laps. Due to the Sufi Holtzum incident, as well as the horrible weather conditions. But on this occasion, we are getting the full 50 minutes, and we are getting to see Danny Sufi in his element here. As we've mentioned, a former drift racer, we know that drift racers typically come with built-in car control, and that aids you in the wet weather, that much is for certain. Steve Parrow still doing an admirable job there in 3rd place. Tom Van Rompuy building that gap between himself and Parrow in 2nd. 4.5 seconds is now the gap. Top 3 running within 10 seconds still, but Sufi, of course, building that gap well. In 4th place, just coming down the main straight at the moment, just heard that car go past me, the Nova Proto of Kevin Rabin, the 71 car's 4th overall, so the young Swiss doing a good job as well. I think he's the 2nd fastest driver out there on circuit right now after Danny Sufi, so Kevin Rabin 4th overall for ANS Motorsport. The N-Class cars, the Nova Proto MP02. It is a car that is pretty much comparative with LMP3s, even though it isn't one. It's got a 5-litre Ford V8 as opposed to the 5.6 Nissan in the LMP3s. There is Leah Mauer in the Racing Experience car, the number 12 Duquesne. This is not a battle for position, of course, because Racing Experience are a couple of laps down, but Emil Heyerdahl thereabouts with Leah Mauer at the moment. Leah on her return to the cockpit after a prolonged absence, and as she was saying in her interview with Chris yesterday during the red flag, you know, not comparing myself to anybody, just making sure that everything is okay and getting myself back up to speed. And she allows Emil Heyerdahl through. Emil, who is competing at the moment in Conrad Motorsports shootouts, in Molnar Motorsports shootouts, and the prize for winning the shootouts across the winter is a full season in Prototype Cup Germany. Kevin Rabin then, the 16-year-old Swiss, running through the final corner of the lap, the Parabolica Ayrton Senna. Listen to the profound difference. If we stay with this camera shot, I will be quiet as the car accelerates out of turn 1. You'll hear quite how different this car sounds from the LMP3, far less thunderous than the cars around it. Take a listen. Slightly gentler engine note than the LMP3s, which were all guttural. Quite surprised, actually. It is a 5-litre V8. Almost sounds more like almost like a Ferrari engine, almost the naturally aspirated Ferrari engine to my ear. But maybe I am going a little bit crazy, because it is indeed a Ford Coyote V8. And actually, Kevin Rabin is not too far removed from Julien Lemoyne, is he? They're setting comparative lap times, and they're about 5 seconds apart. We saw Lemoyne there in the 42 ANS Ligier just behind him. The gap is within 6 seconds. So I don't think Lemoyne is going to be able to challenge for 4th overall, but he is showing some good pace and lapping a couple of tenths quicker than the young Swiss. 10 seconds plus 1 lap remains. So this is the penultimate lap of the race for Danny Soufi in the lead. Has just recently gotten through past Leah Mauer there, as we saw. But Soufi through the kink at turn 5 towards the Parabolica interior. Such a difficult corner, this turn 6, in any conditions, much less the wet, because it kind of, at this point of the corner, gives you the feeling it's going to open up, but it doesn't really. The corner kind of folds in on itself coming out of the turn, so it's quite easy to run wide out of turn 6. But Danny Soufi, with no such issues, has been really enjoying this circuit, and will no doubt leave Estoril glad that he had the experience of running on this circuit, and get the experience at some more of our wonderful destinations on this Prototype Winter Series calendar. 4 weekends for this championship. They take a bit of a sabbatical in February while some of the teams head off to the Asian Le Mans Series out in the UAE. They'll be back with us post-Portimao next weekend. They'll be back with us for Aragon and the season finale for Winter Series at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. That's all far in the future, though. Danny Soufi is currently living in the moment, and that moment is a final lap around the Circuito Estoril. Side by side in the back of shot, but that was for a lap down, so don't panic too much. Steve Parrow has not closed in on Tom Van Rompuy to that extent. They are about 5 seconds apart. But Danny Soufi has been apart from everybody in this race. It would have been really interesting to see what would have happened if the number 33 Duquesne D08, the other car from the Rinaldi Racing stable, the Holtzum Twins car, what would have happened if that car had been out there on the circuit. Certainly, compared to the likes of Kalvitz and Lawrence Herr, two extremely decorated sports car racers, Danny was able to match and best them and lead the race through to the pit stop window. So I think it would have been very interesting to see how he'd have measured up to Sandro Hodson, but certainly in recent times, I think Danny has done some of the most LMP3 mileage of anyone outside of the European Le Mans Series or IMSA, and he's using that experience to his advantage now. Just a few corners left between Danny Soufi and a first win in the Prototype Winter Series. Yesterday was a day to forget for Conrad Motorsport. The collision with the Rinaldi Racing 33 car left both cars damaged. Both teams worked very hard, and Conrad Motorsport succeeded in getting their car ready to go racing once again. And Danny Soufi, coming out of the Parabolica Ayrton Senna here at the Circuito Estoril, has paid back his team, has paid back Franz Conrad for all of their efforts by taking a race victory in the Prototype Winter Series. For the first time, Conrad Motorsport is a race winner in the Prototype Winter Series. It'll be Tom Van Rompuy and Duquesne with the DKR Engineering team that crossed the line to take second place. And then the second of the Ligiers home, third overall, Rinaldi Racing for Steve Parro and Daniel Kalvitz. Parro and Kalvitz across the line at the end of the race to take third. Kevin Rabin eventually will cross the line in fourth. We've also had Emil Heyerdahl and Liam Maurer across the line a lap or two down. Kevin Rabin, the sole Nova on the grid, will take fourth place. You can see him there hesitating on the throttle, just trying to find traction through Gaucho. What a way to arrive in sports car racing in these conditions at the Circuito Estoril. It's been a very impressive first weekend for Kevin Rabin, and I'm sure we're going to see more of him this year. I'm sure we're going to see progress from Kevin Rabin this season in the Prototype Winter Series. He crosses the line to take fourth place. He wins the intra-team battle at A&S Motorsport, because across the line in fifth place comes Julien Lemoyne, and that is our last car across the line. Everyone has crossed the line, and Danny Soufi will be on his cool-down lap celebrating a race victory. And of course, in the next few minutes, he will pull down under the podium, and I'm sure we'll hear from him with Chris McCarthy in a few minutes. But what a race that was. 3 wide at one point down the main straight as Danny Soufi took the lead. You hear the marshals applauding. What a great race that was. LMP3 cars are always great value for money in the entertainment stakes. You don't need a plethora of them to have a brilliant motor race, and Danny Soufi giving us lots of entertainment as he hunted down Rompuy and Parro, as he held off Kalvitz and Lawrence Herr. Lots of very impressive driving in that race, and that was great to witness. And what a way to kick off the all-new Prototype Winter Series, organised by Giedlich Racing in cooperation with the ACO. 4 weekends, again, working around the Asian Le Mans Series calendars, making sure the top teams can do both. But let's see how Danny Soufi and his body language is as he gets out of the car. I think we're about to see a very excited young American. Van Rompuy comes in from second place. But here comes Danny. Embraces with the team there. And there's Franz Conrad. Go on, give him a hug, Franz. Danny Soufi taking the race win in brilliant fashion then, and great result for him. Great result for all 3 parties. Steve Parro did a great job there as well from third place, and also Lawrence Herr doing, sorry, I should say Tom Van Rompuy doing a great job as well in the latter half of the race. Lawrence Herr from the back of the grid was very rapid in the first half of the race, but obviously leading briefly Tom Van Rompuy, but he did have a moment just after the pit window. Van Rompuy, though, taking second place along with Lawrence. I'm sure they'll be happy with that. That is Lawrence there, I believe, just talking to Van Rompuy. I was going to try and listen in there, but I imagine it's in a language quite apart from my own anyway. But what a race that was at the Circuito Estoril. Glory for Conrad Motorsport and Danny Soufi in the Prototype Winter Series. Let's take a look then at the results of this race. It was Danny Soufi after 27 laps, 50 minutes plus 1 lap of racing. He is the first winner of a full distance race in the Prototype Winter Series. Tom Van Rompuy in second place in the Duquesne. Steve Parrow next in third place overall in the Ligier. Kevin Rabin, the only Nova MP02 out there, taking fourth place out of Julian Lemoyne. Emil Heyerdahl finishing sixth place, and Liam Mauer finishing seventh place. Of course, Heyerdahl and Soufi solo drivers. Van Rompuy was joined by Lawrence Herr. Steve Parrow was joined by Daniel Kuyverts in the first half of the race. Julian Lemoyne finishing fifth with the help of his co-driver Clement Moreno, and Liam Mauer being joined, of course, by Charles Delbracine. Everyone who raced in that race deserves a round of applause, because those conditions were very tricky indeed, but everyone made the checkered flag and we saw some fabulous racing. Congratulations once again to our podium finishers in particular. They'll be down there at the moment debriefing, discussing, and maybe joking around a little bit as well. But they'll be happy to have got a full race distance in, of course, after the early red flag yesterday. And I'm sure there's an amount of relief for Danny Soufi. Chris McCarthy is down at the podium now. Let's see who we can talk to.
I'm down here with our winner of the first ever Prototype Winter Series race, Danny Soufi. Danny, congratulations. Of course, conditions getting in the way of the race yesterday. How does it feel to come home and win in what was still tough conditions today?
For sure, no, it feels good. You know, yesterday was not the best day, but it's you know, it's good to come back in P1 the next day and, you know, bring it home for the team. Really sorry for, you know, what happened yesterday and all the work that the guys did, but, you know, they got it back together, gave me a great car, and, you know, still managed to go get it done.
And getting through from third to first as well, talk us through that.
Towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just saw, you know, I had the pace coming out of the final corner and just, you know, stayed in it. It was a bit sketchy going into turn one. I thought we were going to go 3 wide. It ended up being 2 wide. But yeah, no, we got it done. I had the right line on the inside, so I had the advantage.
And no one could stay anywhere near you after that. It seems that the team here, Franz and the team here at Conrad, have put a really good car together for you.
Absolutely. Conrad knows what they're doing. You know, huge thank you to all the boys for getting it back together. Franz, you know, he's got 50 years of racing experience, so when it comes to setting up a car, he knows how to do it.
How does it feel to be working with Franz, of course, a man who stood on the podium at the 24-hour Le Mans? It must be great working with him.
It's special, I got to say. It's quite a unique opportunity, and, you know, he's given me a great opportunity to come out here to Europe and drive race cars, so I'm grateful.
It's great to have you over here. Do you think you can now push on? Do you think this is the start of now a championship assault?
Absolutely. You know, we're going to keep pushing throughout the Winter Series and keep chasing wins, podiums, and hopefully have a good season.
I'm sure the guys up there in the crowd enjoyed that one. Please give a round of applause to our winner there. He's down here, Danny Soufi. Congratulations, Danny. We're going to go and do some proper celebrating up on the podium. Congratulations to you, though. You're the winner of the first ever Prototype Winter Series race. I'm sure that won't be the last one as well. But Adam, I'm going to hand up to you to do some recap, and that was absolutely fantastic coverage by yourself as well. We're going to go and set up for some celebrations on the podium.
Enjoy the celebrations, Chris. Of course, the first ever race to reach its completion in Prototype Winter Series. They did score half points for the couple of laps we managed yesterday in the true inaugural Prototype Winter Series race. But certainly, this one feels like the first proper race, doesn't it? And it was a race won by Danny Soufi. And while he was alone on the front row at the start, he certainly had to do some work to get that win. I think now we can go and look at some highlights from Prototype Winter Series. Danny Sufi led then in the early stages of the race, being pursued by Daniel Kalvitz, who was really pressing on the Rinaldi Racing number 66 car, locking up into Gancho and generally pushing hard. And that was in part because he knew Lawrence Hur was closing in on him rapidly. Lawrence, who started on the back of the grid in the number 3 DKR Engineering car, was closing in. But Danny Sufi was doing a great job holding 2 decorated sports cars behind him, or 2 decorated sports car drivers behind him, and actually building a gap over this man Daniel Kalvitz, who was indeed under pressure from Lawrence Hur and DKR Engineering towards the end of the first stint of the race. Of course, the mandatory pit stops loomed large in everyone's minds, and Danny Sufi, one of few drivers who didn't have to do a change of driver, he pressed on. He managed to get through from 3rd to 1st post pit window, and he was our first winner of the Prototype Win Series season, at least the first to take the checkered flag, of course, because we didn't get a checkered flag yesterday in the Prototype Winter Series. Just a red flag and then a race cancellation. So good to have a full race distance. That's just a taste of what to expect from Prototype Winter Series as the season goes on. Still 3 more rounds, 6 more races to come from them on our live coverage here on the Winter Series Now for Live YouTube channels. There's a lot more racing to come today as well. A lot more broadcasting to come from myself and Chris as well. This is going to be a great day, and we're only just getting started, so make sure you do stay with us. Speaking of just getting started, I know the podiums will not be too far away, and in fact the podiums are ready, so they'll get started now. Let's go down to Chris.
Welcome down to the podium, everyone, for race 2 of the Prototype Winter Series. But as Adam says, this kind of feels like the first one, doesn't it? The first race yesterday going to half points. This the first time we've seen the checkered flag properly waved in the Prototype Winter Series for the Winter Series this season, the 4th season, the first running of the Prototype Winter Series. So the first time we're going to have a proper podium and the champagne sprayed in the Prototype Winter Series. Let's get on with the celebrations then. First of all, we have to get our Class N winner out on the podium. I hope you guys in the crowd enjoyed that and can give the drivers plenty of encouragement as they come out. Let's get our Class N winner out first of all. Number 71, Kevin Rabin. Kevin, just 16 years old. Give him a round of applause, please, as he comes out. Did very, very well. Let's get him out. Well done to Kevin. On the far end there. You can choose which side. Either just on the far. That'll do. Just on the far end there. Or you can come over this side. It's fine. Stand a bit closer to myself. There we go. Right, let's go to LMP3 class. It was absolutely fantastic racing between the top 3, wasn't it? Going all the way down to the final 10 minutes. Finishing in 3rd place, the number 66 drivers, Daniel Kelwitz and Steve Parrow. The Rinaldi Racing drivers will now come out onto the podium. Well done, guys. We're speaking to Daniel. They'll jump onto the 3rd step. Well done, Rinaldi Racing. And handshakes for Kevin Rabin. Right, let's go to 2nd place next. Finishing in 2nd place. They've put on a fantastic performance all weekend, these drivers. Let's give them a round of applause as they come out. The DKR engineering team, Lawrence Hur and Tom Van Rompuy. The number 3 drivers head out. 2nd place for them in race 2 of the Prototype Winter Series here at Estoril. But the winner of round 1, race 2, he charged away after taking the race lead with just under 10 minutes to go. The American for Conrad Racing winning race 2 here at Estoril. Please give him a huge round of applause. The number 7 for Conrad Motorsport, Danny Sufi. Well done, Danny. Jump onto the top step now. The Giedlich Racing team will come out and present the trophies to all you guys. Then we're going to have a bit of a chat before you start the champagne celebrations. We'll get some pictures taken as well. He always does that. So let's get some Pictures taken. Danny will lead the way for that. Well done, guys. Stay where you can jump back on your steps for your podiums. I'm just going to come up. Danny, we'll have another very quick chat to yourself. I know we had a chat to you down there, but who would you like to thank for this win?
Man, I've got to thank France and the entire team, specifically, you know, all my mechanics and engineers. Yesterday, we got the car a little bit torn up, and today they fixed it and got it better than ever. So, huge thank you to the entire team, and thank you to BioCircle, Michelin, and Ravenol.
You've done a great job to reset after what happened yesterday. It shows fantastic, courage to do that.
Thank you.
And looking forward to the rest of the season now?
Absolutely. Portimao is next weekend, and I've been wanting to drive that track for ages, so I'm stoked.
I hope some of you fans can come and join us in that as well. Let's quickly speak to some of the drivers now in second place. Guys, we did a fantastic job. Lawrence, we spoke to you down in pit lane as well. Happy with second place?
Yeah, of course. I mean, after having a quite difficult start to the weekend, quickly replacing John with Tom here, he did a good job today. So I'm really happy to be on the podium.
Think we can get on the top step next time?
Yeah, hopefully. That's the plan.
Good stuff. Well done, guys. Let's come over to third place. So Daniel, we spoke to yourself. So Steve, I want to speak to... Steve, I want to have a quick chat with you. We've already spoken to him. Steve, you enjoyed it this weekend?
Yes, it's my job to keep the car on track and avoid any carnage, and he does the job normally.
Good stuff. And looking forward to the rest of the season now?
Yeah, happy. I hope the weather will be good in Portimao. Yeah.
I hope it gets a bit better. Well done. And I just want to speak to Kevin very, very quickly. Kevin, you enjoyed it this weekend? First time racing in Prototype Winter Series?
Yeah, of course. It's a good experience, and it was a fun weekend. Even there was the rain, as you can see, but we managed to have a good qualifying and a good race. So it was fun. Yeah, of course.
Jumping up from karting, great experience for you. You reckon you can now push forward going throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, of course. Now we're searching for the first place and overall, but with these guys it's going to be a bit harder than you think. So
I've got one eye on Steve. He was trying to get a head start on the champagne celebrations. Guys, over to you. Give a round of applause for our top three, please, in the Prototype Winter Series. Thank you very much, guys in the crowd. Hope you enjoyed that one. Now it's going to get very messy on the podium as we get underway with champagne celebrations in the Prototype Winter Series. Fantastic job from all of our drivers. Lawrence has had some practice of this, you can tell. That's more to have later, Lawrence. It didn't all quite come out, but there you go. More to have later. Cheers all round. Well done, guys. Absolutely fantastic.